Out here across the board, we have people saying, is the stock market going to crash? Is it going to crumble? Is it going to come tumbling down? This is something that I've heard year after year, over and over, every year, the same thing. What you need to know is that this whole thing is being propped up by the same hand. If you're new to my channel, your understanding of this is going to be different than those that have obviously been here for a while, because those that have been around for a while, you understand where I'm coming from with everything I'm saying in terms of this world stage. For those that are new, just me saying world stage could make you say, well, what's that? It's how I view this whole planet, how it operates. It's a stage. They have theaters of war, and I see it as just that. These things being played out, and I don't just see it on a whim like that. I see it like that because of what I've been proven. I've been proven to that Rothschilds were highly trained and sent to France, Germany, all these other countries, and funded both sides of the major world wars. You're not taught that in school. You see? This is the education, real world education you get here, outside of their dumbed down education, school, so to speak. When you step into the real world, you spend all this time awakening, trying to find out what's really going on. And you find out just how bad you've been lied to, how dumbed down they try to make the people. This thing is set up, and this whole country's been set up. If you're wondering where we're going, look no further than the last Great Depression. J.P. Morgan Chase, all these goons gathered on Jekyll Island. They plotted and planned the Great Depression. They created a false rumor that made a bank run and robbed this country blind. Their seeds are still balling today. How is that? How come no one ever went to jail? All that money wasn't taken back? Am I the only one asking common sense questions around here? So we have handful of people in here and there, Rothschilds, Jekyll Island situation, that same pattern repeated by the hand, as I call it. Behind the curtain, same ones to pull off 9/11s, false flag events, and all this other stuff. It's the same hand that controls all of it. Because ultimately, the collapse of America will be the ultimate 9/11. It will be the ultimate move. And to me, that will be a lights out situation, which I've talked about many other times before. Militarily, strategically, it would be the move. Not for another country. Not for another country. Even though they'll utilize another country like China in the process, but for this new world order that they want. Did you forget George Bush Sr. said if the American people knew what we did, they would lynch us in the streets? Out of his own mouth. This is why we say Illuminati, to expose the corruption across the globe. You see, JFK warned you of these bankers, these cartels. Then they killed him. And our money's not backed by gold. Whose is? The Chinese yuan is now being backed, and no one wants to hear it. No one wants to hear it. Because it shatters the perception of reality, of this fairy tale. That the US dollar and the United States and your freedom and all this is going to last forever. And it's not going to last forever if people don't get up off their ass and fight for it. And defend it. That's for damn sure. But here on this world stage, what I see is if I stop and look at this and I put myself in their shoes, okay? If you can stop and do that, just like any investigator has to put himself into the shoes of the criminal, into the mind of the killer, to figure out the next clue. Do you see? And when you do this, put yourself in a slimy ass suit and shoes, and you see, and you start to think like them, train yourself to think like them, and you say, okay, we want to downfall all these people. What's the best way to do it? What's the best way to buffalo these people? Are we going to nuke the city? Are we going to nuke San Francisco? Well, no, that'd be a hell of a cleanup. That's blowback in our face. We can't do that. Well, why would we nuke San Francisco? Well, then let's nuke Houston. Well, we can't do that. The same situation. So we can't use nukes. Maybe something small and tactical in a situation that is more 9/11ish, but that's not going to shut the lights out in the whole country. So how do we shut the lights out across the whole country on them without any nuclear fallout? EMP. Okay. EMP. Well, how do we safeguard ourselves? Well, we have been. Cheyenne Mountain, everything else, all of our military grade stuff is protected from an EMP and everything else. And yeah, okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Okay, so we can't stop this at the border. So, well, Canada's going to be pulled into this too. Their government's in here with us. They're in bed with us. So in Mexico, we're going to use a large portion of Mexico as a staging area to roll in UN troops in what we're going to call humanitarian aid. That way it doesn't look like they're going in there and they're just killing off Americans. They're coming in there as humanitarian aid. That way we've got all these Chinese troops that we need to utilize to stow a blue helmet on them and send them in there, and they can take over the nuclear facilities and lock them down. They'll already have all the diesel gasoline because we've been buying it up, and they have been, on the East Coast, and sending it to the nuclear plants in the Carolinas and in Georgia, among other places, and Google's been buying it up. Not to mention, any of the Chinese that own land within the country, that own hundreds and hundreds of acres and have their own private airstrip, can simply just fly in as many as they want right to their own property. No one's ever going to see it. No one's ever going to stop it. Nothing. And simply sit back and let the people kill themselves within 3 weeks to 4 weeks. There will be very low pockets, very small pockets of people fighting for the last bits, and we'll just send in a crew. There will be Predator drones crisscrossing the countries, the Apaches, the whole nine. They'll have it cleaned up here within a few months is how they're going to see it. They'll starve them out and everything else, and then they'll surround them and everything, and they'll send their UN troops and to try to flush them out. And their hope is that many people will come running to the trucks thinking they'll have fresh food and a hot shower, and they'll be their savior, and they'll be shipped up and sent off to a camp. All the horror stories of what no one ever wanted to realize that could ever happen to this country, that was just conspiracy theory and everything else, is actually part of the plan on trying to clean up the mess here when it happens. Now, the only way that this can happen here on this world stage is if some of these world leaders are a part of it, just like every other world war. Look at Israel, the founding of Israel. Who did Hitler strike up a deal with to send all these Jews to form and found the heart of it? The Rothschilds. That's right. Do your research. Just like who went in and funded and created the whole Bolshevik Revolution? Do your research. Who is the upper echelon of all the fake so-called elites in Saudi Arabia right now? Same with the ones on the crown in the UK. These same hands, the alphabet gangs of your CIAs, FBIs, Mossads, they're all in on this together. So no one ever wants to talk about it. You see? So when you see that they're operating together, you see that this is a play on all of us. The Chinese, the Russians, the Brazilians, the Americans. It's just the people they brainwashed to utilize for their own good. It's easy to tell your countrymen, oh, you've got to go to war for our freedom. All these guys sign up. But after a decade or so of killing people in Afghanistan and Iraq and all these dudes coming back home, the ones lucky enough to come back home, they're like, dude, nah. This ain't right. And you see, soon as you lose that, then America, being the war machine that it was, willing to fight everyone when it no longer wants to, for some other man, it is obsolete to them. Now you are the last thing standing in their way to get what they want to achieve. And it's going to start with a North American bloc, where there is going to be no wall. Even if they build a wall, in my opinion, it will never be completed. And if it is to keep you in where they are taking this. Or you can fall back asleep and think that, oh, Trump or Hillary is going to win to save the day for you when they're cheersing behind the curtain. I've been trying to tell you this since before they even started the election. But no, nobody wanted to hear it because it shatters the perception of reality. You see, sometimes you have to test yourself in the bounds of that. And I don't come out here just saying this. I'm saying this based on everything that we have learned throughout the years. Okay? In hopes that people see what's really happening. All these markets are being manipulated by news. They can say, oh, Bitcoin's the shit, and oh, the stock market's roaring, all through 2017, creating a massive bull market. Then they slam on the brakes here all of a sudden. Now the Dow's dumping, everything else is dumping. Gold had came down and bottomed out. Crypto's completely bled out, the whole nine. You think that that's by accident? It's not. All these people just got huge 401k chunks and all this extra bonus money that they're saying. Where do you think it's coming from? Do you see money missing anywhere? Look all around you right now. This game is propped up. I've shown you that the biggest banks have been dragged into court. For everyone out there saying these people need to be pulled into court and go to jail. Well, they have been pulled into court. Where have you been? I've said this repeatedly, over and over and over again. They're manipulating the housing markets. They got caught doing it. Precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium. They were drugged into court, smack on the wrist, fine some money, and they're allowed to keep on pushing. How is that? This is how it's all set up. So, to me, whenever I hear the market's crashing, I don't believe it's ever. They may have some big time crap going with the markets, ups and downs. But as far as absolutely bottoming out, Great Depression and all that, I don't see none of that happening until they shut the lights off. Because they gain more shutting the lights off. You have to look at the criminal, what they have to gain, what they're going to have to invest. Also, rewriting the history books. How do you do it? Well, we just so happen to have a North Korean shining star satellite passing over our country every freaking day. And your sold out upper echelon of U.S. military doesn't seem to give up about it. That right there is the switch that shuts the lights off. And when it happens, your history books will show that they hit us and that we nuked them in that peninsula afterwards. And that probably we even go back to showing that Russia and China were involved because it was a master plan of theirs to begin with. And here on this world stage, the history books, just like the fall of Rome, the fall of America, will come from one great lights out event in this country. The easiest way to do it. And some could say, I think you're wrong. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to shut the lights out at all. I think they're just going to crash the stock market. Okay, well then you have the luxury of dealing with the madness with some of your power until eventually it does go out. Some of you are putting too much blind faith into a strategy that isn't going to get you a day or two out here when it happens. This falls back to survival. Anytime you talk about something like this, everybody works every day for what? Money. And some of you hate it. Every one of you do it. To pay the bills. Now they're going to switch this thing over to a new system down the road, and I've warned you about it. The very first crypto video I ever did warned about the beast blockchain. Once again, I don't sugarcoat nothing. Not about Trump, Hillary, not even about your cryptos. The very first video I ever put out was about the beast blockchain. And anyone that just is in love with crypto, just like they'd be just in love with Trump or in love with Hillary blindly, doesn't want to hear it. That's ignorant. To blindly attach yourself to anything is ignorance. Even if you said you went overboard, told all these people you voted for blah, 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 there's a time to reckon with things and to say, you know what, maybe he's not right here or there or this and that. Or maybe that person screwed this up. You know? You have to, at some point, if you really want to wake up you have to take off the blinders. And that's going to mean adjusting to things that you weren't normally comfortable with. Okay? Trust me. It's not easy, but it is possible. And the power's in the people. Us, we the people. Don't you ever forget that. Okay? They can bring down the market, but what are we going to do about it? They already brought down the market. Great Depression. What did anyone do about it? Their offspring still balling. All of us are still slaving it. 9 to 5. So I guess at the end of the day, this is my point. You have to create something yourself. The Beast blockchain is going to be implemented worldwide, in my opinion, and it's going to shift power to the east, to Asia when the US dollar falls. They're going to put everything on blockchain and they have no problem with doing it. Communist China doesn't. And tracking every asset, including you. The only thing that stops all this from happening globally is us and our freedoms. When that falls, a whole new age ushers in. It won't be based on the Chinese yuan. This whole thing will then shift to a global dominant currency. Where probably right out the gate, each block, like the Amero for, they've already talked about this. I mean, it would be the digital cryptocurrency, so to speak, on a blockchain, tracked. You can't hide it in your safe, can't hide it under your mattress. This was my warning to all of you. If you do not create a currency that righteous people control, in the end, this is where it's headed. To where they will control a global currency that they track along with everything you buy. Every dime you make will all be tracked on the blockchain. Do you want to live like that? Do you want to live tracked by everything, knowing wicked people are in control of all of it? This blockchain revolution, so to speak, is here. It's not going away. I see none of you standing up to wage a fight to say anything against it in terms of creating your own currency. Oh, have you? Where are you at? Where are you at? You telling me some of you out there have actually got a plan to create a currency and you've got some money that you're actually willing to spend to help save this damn thing and to put forth to actually make something happen? We've got people out here, but most people, when this is talked about, they just want to come and make their money and run. Pump and dump it. I don't want to pump and dump. I don't even want to be involved in that. That's all I ever get approached on. So yeah, I'm still asking, where are the people out there that want to create a real currency that we can stand behind? Back it by a gram of silver, sliver of silver, something. That would be worth more than your dollar. But once again, currency comes down to the eye of the beholder. It's the demand of the person. You have to remember that. And in this market, whether it's the stock market or whether it's the crypto markets, it's all being controlled by larger hands, larger money, regardless. Okay? And it is being heavily influenced by news. By the news. So, for those in the crypto realm, if you see, let's just get a refresh here. You see all kinds of news coming out in the next 2 weeks, between February 15th and the 21st, you're going to start to see a shift up, in my opinion. This is going to be after the Lunar New Year. And you see, it's one of those things you have to know in the game, the cycle. If you go back and look at the Bitcoin cycles here through the past couple of years, mid-February, liftoff. After the Lunar New Year, you have to understand, all of Asia, this is their holiday, their Christmas, so to speak, where they're buying gifts, where they're traveling, pulling out money. All that has to be taken into consideration. If you're a noob, you had no clue. You see, so these guys knew damn well that had been in the game for years, especially a year or more out here, when Bitcoin hit 20,000 to step aside and wait for this moment. Not even a month or so later, they're buying in this next ride. They're going to probably try to take it to 30 or beyond. At least 21. They'll at least hit their benchmark they hit last time on this next bull run up. The question is how long will this bear market last? Last time, we had a bull market that lasted pretty much a year. Now, are we talking about a bear market that could last just as long? I'm not so sure of that, but it is a possibility. One thing is for sure, though. You have to realize news runs heavy on this. If you continue to see headlines dogging and dissing Bitcoin or other currencies out here, well, you can pretty much guess that it's going to continue to go downhill. If you see positive news, like it's going uphill, or places are accepting it, this and that, or just any kind of positive momentum, the guess is it's going to start heading uphill. Okay? Look for projects out there in terms of cryptos that have something to offer and solve something in the real world. Okay? Real world application. And it's always good to know what you're dealing with if you have a project that's going to be hitting a new exchange. This is the difference between the stock market and crypto realm. There's different exchanges out here, so to speak, that these currencies can hit and explode on. If you do your research, you know your numbers, and you know where they sit, you can capitalize on that. If they're going to rebrand, like Lisk is going to do here on the 20th, and VeChain is going to do on the 26th, you can expect these are the type of coins people are diving back into immediately and that are going to swell here in the coming weeks, especially timed with right after the Chinese New Year, right after everything shifting north, and huge rebrandings. It's just the way the game goes, the timing of it. So timing is everything. The news has a lot to do with it, with this market. Will Bitcoin continue to crash? Will it rise? Has a lot to do with the news, like I said, and what's happening out here. I'm going to continue to cover this a lot closer and do reviews on the markets all the way around. Used to talk about stock markets, used to talk a little bit about cryptos, but it's the markets all the way around. So I think I'm going to start doing at least a weekly review of the markets. Give it the time dedicated that it needs to what's going on, all the talk going on in the headlines, whether we're heading north, south, what's causing it, the major players, so on and so forth. But remember this moment in time. This February 5th, 2018, I want you all to remember this day in terms of markets and the massive dip that we saw here. Anyone that has been waiting for a good entry point, well, you're probably within your window, I'd say now, especially with this thing hitting 6.5. I mean, if it could crush down to the 6 range, even it gets that low, I wouldn't even doubt they try to crush it to 5.5. Just to do it, to squeeze it out of people. If they could do it, they will. But then when this thing takes off on its next run, there has to be a correction north. Okay, so remember that. There has to be a correction to everything, a counter to all of it. What goes up must come down, and what comes down, usually if it's coming down hard, it bounces pretty high. So, same thing with the markets here. I expect with this massive run-up and this fall, I expect it to catch right here, you see? And if it catches and continues here, guess what it's done? It's kind of picked up pace on a gradual rise still. So it's not all that bad at the end of the day. Now, if this crashes and then crashes and crashes and picks up and doesn't catch back up to where we left off, well, that's when we can start to give it a review and say, okay, maybe we are heading in a downward trend, and then we're going to have to look at all the other factors, the bonds, the wages, and all that, everything else that factors into it. But there is a look at the markets, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, these markets may run Monday through Friday ending at 4 p.m., but the crypto markets are 24/7 and a lot more volatile. For the record, I am not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. You might as well say I'm invested in all these coins just to play it safe, in all the stocks. which I'm not, but this isn't financial advice. I do this to educate people and help you get steered in the right direction. Also, make sure to follow our Telegram group, where all the information there too is free. It's about educating others about what's going on. I will leave links. Looking forward to good days ahead. This has been Dabu7. Much love, y'all.